Regent Delgado.
Present.
Regent Evers.
Yes, here. Present.
Regent Farrell.
Here.
Regent Greeby.
Here.
Regent Hall. Here. Regent Harsey.
Here.
Regent Higgins. Here. Regent Langness. Regent Menedee.
Here.
Regent Milner.
Here.
Regent Mueller. Regent Peterson.
Here.
Regent Pruitt.
Here.
Regent Tyler.
Here.
Regent Vasquez. Regent Whitburn.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Before we get started, I'd like to say thank you to Chancellor Bev Kopper and her team here at UW-Whitewater for their wonderful hospitality in welcoming us to their campus. I would also like to point out that we're on the home campus of one of our student regents, James Langness. We sincerely appreciate all the work that everyone has done to make our time here something special. And we look forward to seeing and hearing much more about UW-Whitewater in the next 2 days. Now, this afternoon, I am pleased to welcome back a familiar colleague, Regent Mark Tyler. Welcome back, Mark.
Oh, thank you very much.
Mark previously served on the board as the Wisconsin Technical College System Representative from 2011 to 2013. And it's in that capacity that he now joins us again. Mark succeeds Drew Peterson. Mark is the founder and president of OEM Fabricators, a contract manufacturer in western Wisconsin. He is vice president of the WTCS board and chair of the Governor's Council on Workforce Investment. Over the years, he has served on numerous boards and councils, including the Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, the West Central Wisconsin Workforce Development Board, the Family Resource Center in St. Croix Valley, and the Wisconsin Technical Council. OEM Fabricators received honors for UW Manufacturer as Wisconsin Manufacturer of the Year in 2006 and again in 2012. We are delighted to have you rejoin us, Mark, and would you share a few words with us?
Sure, thank you very much for that welcome. I'd also like to thank John Schwantes, who's the current WTCS president, and I'm serving in his place. My objective on the board here is really to encourage closer relationships between the organizations that I'm involved with and try and drive deeper collaboration. All of those organizations have very distinct and important missions, but I believe that by standing together, we're all better, we're all stronger. So thank you for your welcome, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Welcome, Mark. In other Regents news, I'd like to offer congratulations on behalf of the board to Regent Jose Vasquez, who was recently named the new president of Milwaukee St. Anthony's, the largest K-12 Catholic school system in the country. St. Anthony's has 2 elementary school campuses, as well as separate middle school and high school campuses, and a preschool and daycare. Jose started his new position just last week, so he couldn't be here today, but we wish him well in his new venture. Now, I believe President Cross has some news to share. President Cross?
Thank you, Regent Milner. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm pleased to introduce the board to a new member of the UW System Administration, Dr. Shanita Brokenburr. Shanita, would you stand up? Welcome. Shanita joins us as the new Senior Associate Vice President for Human Resources and Workforce Diversity, as well as our Chief Human Resources Officer. She replaces Al Christ, who retired earlier this summer. Dr. Brokenburr was most recently a Vice President at the Ounce of Prevention Fund in Chicago, She previously served as Vice Chancellor and System Chief Human Resources Officer for the West Virginia Higher Education Policy Commission, where she was responsible for the development and implementation of human resources policy across a network of 21 higher education institutions. She has also held leadership positions in HR at the College of Southern Maryland and at Montclair State University. She earned a PhD in Higher Education Administration at Michigan State University, where she served as Project Director for the Michigan Center for Education and Work. She officially starts her new role next week, but she's here today, and we appreciate that. Welcome aboard, Shanita. We look forward to working with you.
One of the best parts of getting the Regents meetings on the road is having an opportunity to visit one of our fine campuses. To get things, and as we are there, we have an opportunity to learn about that campus. The campus, the programs, and the students. Now, to get things started, I'm going to turn the things over to our host, Chancellor Bev Kopper. Chancellor Kopper?
Good afternoon. This afternoon you're not only visiting another campus, but you are a very special guest of the UW-Whitewater family, and we are absolutely delighted that you are here today. We think of UW-Whitewater as one of the bright stars in the UW system, and shortly you will see that we also think that's true in the galaxy. We are proud in recent years we have set records for applications received, set records for total enrollment, retention rates, and graduation rates. Less than 2 weeks ago, we welcomed more than 12,000 students to campus. And we are predicting, of course, we do not have final numbers yet, but we are predicting another year of record enrollment, which has happened 5 out of the last 6 years. Like most campuses, UW-Whitewater is heavily dependent on having strong enrollment. Tuition dollars are absolutely critical to our overall fiscal health. In the current fiscal year, UW-Whitewater's state funding is just 10.22% of our overall budget. It is critical that we continue to grow our enrollment. But I have to share with you that we have a problem. Our housing facilities are no longer able to accommodate all of those who want to come here and to live on campus. Yes, we've actually had to turn students away. We've lost students because of this problem. In May, we lost 25 transfer students when we told them that we had no on-campus housing available for them. And when we moved students in recently, we have 179 students in lounges. We have 450 students in 2 off-campus apartments run by University Housing, and we've released 558 sophomores from the on-campus housing requirement. Now I will share with you, we began releasing sophomores several years ago, and I have to be honest to the board, there is no record of us seeking the board's approval to do this as required by board policy for these exemptions. So we will certainly be bringing forth a plan in that regard. A new residence hall is critical for us to serve our students, and it's critical for our financial future. We need your support to ensure that our stalled new residence hall moves forward and all of our housing options continue to be viable. And I'll continue to talk more about this in the future. So, back to our student experience. Our mission at UW-Whitewater states that we serve multicultural students, students with disabilities, and non-traditional students by providing specific support services and programs for them. That is part of our special mission. Last year, our campus enrolled a little under 1,400 underrepresented minority undergraduate students, and that is more than any other comprehensive university in the system. Our class of 2019 is even more diverse. 14% of the students are underrepresented minority students, 39% are first-generation college students, and 18% are non-resident students. Our students, without question, work extremely hard, and they know all of you do too. So I'd like to invite some of our Warhawk family members to the front room. They have gifts for the Regents and for President Cross. So if our students, if you all could come forward at this time. They need to find you each.
The Whitewater Chancellor Beverly
Okay, I absolutely hate to interrupt. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, students. Thank you. From all of us at UW-Whitewater, thank you, Board of Regents and President Cross, for all that you do. In the coming days, you'll have the opportunity, certainly, to meet more of our amazing students. And you also know, of course, that we love purple, and we also love being green. So you also have some honey from our Warhawk bees for your enjoyment. Our commitment to success of all students runs deep on this campus. We come to campus every day asking, how do we better serve the needs of every student at this university? This is a philosophy that is core to being a part of the Warhawk community. Now, some of you remember a presentation last year regarding our equity gap, the gap in retention and graduation rates for underrepresented minority students and non-URM students. Our gap between our underrepresented minority students and non-URM students for retention and graduation rates fluctuates a great deal from year to year and is simply too large. Closing the gap is imperative, and the existence of the gap is counter to our mission. But beyond our mission, closing the gap is simply the right thing to do. To address this gap, we initiated a program, Pathway to Success, that is gaining significant traction with our students. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Richard McGregory, our Assistant Vice Chancellor for Multicultural Affairs and Student Success. Dr. McGregory?
Our Pathway for Success program. Oh, first I should start by saying good afternoon. Our Pathway for Success program developed from initial conversations between the admissions, advising, multicultural affairs, and registrar's offices in 2009. The purpose of the discussions was to find a way to better engage a population of students that the campus was admitting. Now, these students had profiles such that they were taking at least one developmental course. And so we wanted to make sure that these students had a greater chance for success. Ultimately, the engagement that we would come up with would take the form of greater coordination of advising, instructional, and academic support services to more intentionally make the Pathway students' academic experience more seamless. The program began as a pilot initiative that served a maximum of 50 freshman students per year in the 2010, 2011, and 2011-2012 academic years. The early signs of success allowed our campus to be able to secure a UW system grant to expand to 150 students per year for the 2012-13 and 2013-14 academic years. Continued success, as well as many of the lessons that we learned from the expansion, further convinced our supporter, Chancellor and Provost, of the need to institutionalize our program at 100 students per year for the 2014-15 academic year and beyond. The program has been impactful. First, for the first to second year retention rate, students with pathway profiles had a retention rate in the low 60s before the program was implemented. Since the program has been implemented, this rate has risen to approximately 75% for pathway participants. Secondly, the Pathway for Success Committee has worked to bring together faculty and staff in instructional capacity, as well as advisors and support services personnel, to have regular discussions about how to more effectively scaffold these students in ways that are intentional, seamless, and effective. And recent data suggests that students are utilizing the services to be successful. Pathway students utilize tutorial services during their freshman year of involvement at a rate of approximately 12 hours per week. That's just tutoring, not including studying outside of tutoring, but that's tutoring. Also, Pathway students have an enviable record of engaging in high-impact educational practices, which is in sync with our LEAP thrust on our campus. In fact, at last week's orientation program, a number of sophomore and junior Pathway students indicated that this year they're serving as residence hall assistants. More important than the success that I can enumerate is the fact that students who have bought into the program have become successful. And nothing talks about their success like them. So at this time, we're going to have two of our Pathway students, Natalie Arriaga and Dimitri Starks, and they'll give remarks from the student perspective.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natalie Arriaga. Upon entering UW-Whitewater, I would have never truly imagined myself to be where I am today. Upon entering my junior year, with the aspiration of being one step further into accomplishing an international studies major, Spanish minor, and pursuing the Diversity Leadership Certificate, I can only stand here today in front of all of you from the help of the two amazing advisors from the Pathway to Success program, Christine Jesbeck and Janae Alston. I am aware of all the meetings, calls, papers, and even photos it took to make this event possible today. Even the amount of balloons needed for today and tomorrow, about 100. In fact, due to my participation in the Pathway to Success program, I was able to acquire my job in the Marketing Media Relations office. It was in large part due to the recommendation of the professor, Dr. Suzanne Huss-Letterman. And of course, Dr. Huss-Letterman happens to be one of the primary English professors for the Pathway program. This position had become available due to a previous Pathway for Success student leaving the 4-year long-term position, graduating, and accepting a job offer in Florida. Now, all of this seems quite nice, and yet I wonder, if I had not been enrolled in this academic learning community, would I have stepped out of my comfort zone so easily? Would I have become so involved on campus, such as being a part of Residence Hall Association, Law Society, Latinos Unidos, and even being inducted into the National Residence Hall Honorary without even being a resident assistant? Would I have gone on a faculty-led travel study to Jamaica my first year, or just have been recently promoted to president of Latinos Unidos? I honestly don't think so. I have always expressed my pride to my peers and professors that I participated in the Pathway to Success program. My classmates, professors, and advisors taught me that even though I had struggled with academics in the past, it was no excuse for me to give up on my future. Through the freezing cold winter and the summer heat, my peers and I found a way to attend every tutoring session. Of course, most were mandatory, but I mean, most of us went anyways. Eventually, I went when we didn't even need to go. Like I said, most times we were either ahead of our papers or we just needed extra help. But based on my own personal academic experiences throughout my whole education career, I needed a second opinion. I needed those opinions for which Pathway to Success offered. I took advantage of every opportunity they put in place for me, and I don't regret it one bit, because this helped me to solidify my college career. With their passion and belief, this learning community has sent me off into the right direction. Now it's my turn to set my own path and make my journey truly successful. Thank you.
Can y'all hear me? Okay, just making sure. All right, hello everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you all for being here and allowing me to talk about the continued success of the Pathways for Success program. Like many students, when I first entered into this program, I didn't really know what it was. I also had had academic troubles in the past, and I was afraid of how that would affect my college career. Every year, having the opportunity to see how far students have come, as well as hearing multiple success stories, is a personal treat for me. Like many, I'm sorry, one second. One of the staff members connected to the program, Christine Yesbeck, who was my advisor my freshman year. She doubles as my advisor, and she is also my friend, one of my closest friends here at the university. And she helped me realize the unique possibilities that laid in front of me. She, as well as the tutors and the other advisors, showed me that I can not only become a better student, I could also improve and become a better person overall. And as I enter into my final year here at the UW-Whitewater, I have not only taken advantage of educational opportunities, but I have also become an extremely happy person in the process. I know that supplemental instructions, tutorings, and required classes may seem like a waste of time, at least it did to me when I first came here. It is in fact the exact opposite. Students are really given the chance to create relationships that will last a lifetime and better their skills as a student overall. As the faculty and staff associated with the Pathways for Success program reinforce the message that it is all up to you. College means independence, and that's exactly what it is. You will either choose to be good or you will choose to, relax all the time. But it will be up to you to decide what you want to do with your limited time here. My experience has been that participating in the structured program and taking that help has equaled success 10 times out of 10. In fact, my Pathways experience has assisted me in being able to obtain an internship, not only last summer with a major infrastructure company, but also this summer with employment after graduation. So in ending, I would just like to say that this program is not only a great program, but it is also necessary for the students who feel like their academic career will not get off to a good start, or if they feel like they don't have what it takes, because that's exactly what Pathways teaches you, that you have everything you need. The only thing you need is that little push. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, it wouldn't be a visit to UW-Whitewater without talking about Warhawk athletics. But today, we're not going to talk about our national championship trifecta, when against 38 million to 1 odds, our football team, men's basketball team, and baseball team won their national championships all in the same year, something never done in the history of the NCAA. We're also not going to talk about our 2014 National Football Championship team, or our gymnastics team's national championship three-peat, or are we going to talk about the 15 national championships that our men and women's wheelchair basketball teams have won? No, we're not going to talk about that. Instead, we're going to share how we help our student athletes, and yes, they are students first, become future leaders of this nation. Our Warhawk Leadership Academy is receiving national attention from the NCAA, and has received special grant funding from the NCAA. The program was developed by our athletic director, Amy Edmonds, and assistant professor, Christina Navarro, and I would like to invite them forward.
Thank you, Chancellor. We won't talk about any of that, so thank you very much. Good afternoon and welcome. We're very happy to have you here with us today for the next couple days, on the campus, so thank you for being here. Warhawk Athletics belongs to the NCAA Division III membership, which is comprised of 450 institutions, of which 80% are private. We embrace a phrase called powered by tradition. That means for us that every day we're going to achieve excellence one day at a time. So we're doing that in the classroom, in our community, through a lot of different service activities. Most importantly, we're also doing that on our playing surfaces because of the things we're achieving in the classroom and through our community. I'm proud to report that we took 6th in the Athletic Directors Cup this past year. That's, again, out of 450 institutions, and that's because 17 of our 20 programs went to postseason play. It's phenomenal. About the Warhawk Leadership Academy. 5 years ago, Dr. Navarro and I knew each other through student services or enhancement, and we shared a passion for student-athlete development. We had a vision of what a program might look like for Division III when you look at Division I and II institutions. 3 years ago, Dr. Navarro joined our team at Whitewater. We couldn't be more happy. And through many, many conversations, we were able to bring to life the Warhawk Leadership Academy.
Thank you. As Amy mentioned, the Warhawk Leadership Academy truly is a collaborative effort. As Amy mentioned, the Warhawk Leadership Academy truly is a collaborative effort at the forefront of national programming. It's been a true privilege to work as a faculty member alongside Amy and these fine student athletes that you'll hear from in a minute. This program idea began several years ago, 5 I believe, when we just started to discuss how we could truly engage our students in the student experience. Nationally, student-athlete leadership development is at the forefront of conversations from Division I to Division III. The Warhawk Leadership Academy is founded on national standards that stem from conversations with an NCAA committee. This committee was charged with redeveloping and revamping a national curriculum. From the freshman to the senior year, the programming focuses on enhancing student success via high-impact student engagement principles. These principles are tied to the cornerstones of our liberal education standards. At the campus level, we have really leveraged this national curriculum movements to serve as a pioneer, moving forward as not only a Division III model, but across the NCAA. What truly sets this program apart is the campus-wide commitment to the student experience, this deeply rooted tradition in excellence in athletics and academics. In athletics, we often like to refer this, as Amy mentioned, to a tradition of being powered by tradition. This commitment to student-athletes' academic success, retention, engagement, and career readiness truly defines our mission. As the Director of Student-Athlete Engagement, I'm thrilled to have 2 of our students here to share more with you today. Michael Selm is currently our SAC President and Warhawk Leadership Academy President. Christine Pinella is a member of our Higher Ed Athletic Administration graduate program. With that, I'd like to invite Mike to the stage to talk more with you about the logistics of the program.
Good afternoon. Like Dr. Navarro said, my name is Michael, and I am a double major in chemistry and health and human performance with a minor in coaching. I serve as the acting treasurer for the student organization Active, president of the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, more commonly known as SAC, and the Warhawk Leadership Academy. I'm also a member of our men's soccer team, which is off to a 4-0 start this season. Thank you. My personal career aspiration is to be an athletic administrator at an NCAA institution because the way athletics has affected my college experience has been extraordinary. And I really want others to have that opportunity as well. Because of my career goals, I reached out to Dr. Navarro about a year ago to pursue some undergraduate research. Through that relationship, I was made aware of an opportunity to apply for the NCAA Career and Sport Forum that took place in the NCAA headquarters in Indianapolis this summer. That was truly a life-changing opportunity for me, and it really solidified my passion for improving the student-athlete experience. The curriculum and knowledge experience gained at the forum has helped in the development of the Warhawk Leadership Academy, in which we will officially launch this Monday night. The Warhawk Leadership Academy's mission is to develop, challenge, and support student-athletes, coaches, and staff in their continual pursuit to become leaders in athletics, academics, and life. The program stresses career exploration, major choice, and academic preparation with special attention to identity development. In the freshman year, programming includes a 6-week orientation program where veteran Warhawks mentor rising Warhawks or our freshman athletes, and then in mentor groups. During the sophomore year, the program focuses on leading by example by incorporating campus and community outreach in an initiative called Warhawks Give Back, which Christine will touch on next. Beyond SAC participation in the Warhawks Give Back program, upperclassmen can also participate in the Veteran Warhawks program. The experience continues and extends career and leadership development. Participants practice leading while investing in the development and mentorship of our younger teammates. As the SAC and WLA president, it's my charge to my fellow student athletes to continue to build a more robust program stemming from the solid foundation that is already in place here. In my time here, the athletic department has presented me with many outreach opportunities, such as Reading with the Warhawks, where we go to local elementary schools and read to the children during their library hour. Or just last week, when we had the residents of the Fairhaven Continuing Care Retirement Community come to a football practice. I have to say, it was great listening to the stories they shared about the Whitewater community, even the stories they shared about campus before Old Main burned down 45 years ago. These experiences continue to help motivate me to continue the promotion of the Warhawk Leadership Academy. And then here is Christine, who is going to tell you more about how we help tell the collective story of our student athletes actively engaging in the campus and surrounding community.
Thank you, Mike. As Mike stated, I'm Christine Pinello. I am part of the Athletic Administration graduate program here, as well as took part of the Health and Human Performance department here. I'm very involved in the athletic standpoint, whether it's from the event basis or the student-athlete engagement piece. I also play a large role in the recreation sports department here on campus, which is perfect to have both of those. I'm very passionate about athletics, as well as living a healthy, well-rounded lifestyle, so working with both these departments fits my passion perfectly. My passion for athletics was solidified over the past 3 years by having an opportunity to do undergraduate research. I met with Dr. Navarro, and we talked about what's important for us to research. We decided to compile research on student engagement efforts from all NCAA divisions, level 1, 2, and 3. Being granted the opportunity to present research at conferences across the United States has impacted me significantly as a student and a professional, as well as helped me discover that athletics is where I want to be now and in my future. I think most of us could agree that for athletes at any level, from college to professional, it's not just about what the athlete does on the court, but also what they do off of the court, which is where the Warhawks Give Back program comes into play. The Warhawks Give Back program is part of the Warhawk Leadership Academy you've been hearing about, and this part of the program is unique because it gives us the opportunity to not only make a difference on the campus and in our community, but also allows us to tell the story about the impact we are creating. This program allows us to collaborate with all different departments on campus, surrounding communities, and grant more opportunities to become involved for our student athletes. With the development of this program, it has allowed us to create a tracking system, reach out to more organizations for a wider scope of opportunities, and also unify efforts within our own departments. This program is led by our Student Athlete Advisory Committee and staffed by our Athletic Administration graduate students. We have a wide variety of opportunity for our student athletes, so there's definitely something for everyone. Mike had discussed a few of our outreach efforts, and I just wanted to touch on quickly some of our larger campus and community partnerships. In the partnerships with the College of Education here, student athletes will take part in a major effort to enhance children literacy, paired with the Reading with the Warhawks Mike had just mentioned. Also in the spring, we'll be working with the College of Letters and Science to partner around science education and athletics, teaching students about velocity, acceleration, and physics through the use of athletics equipment and sport. This part of the program I hold dear to my heart because I have a passion for assisting people in any way that I'm capable of. So for me to take this program head on and work in collaboration with our faculty staff, campus, community, and student athletes, I couldn't have imagined a better fit for what I love to do and enhance my passion for athletics, education, and involvement. I'd like to personally thank Amy Edmonds and Dr. Navarro for working with Mike, myself, and other students to make UW-Whitewater one of the leaders in developing us as holistic students.
Thank you. As I mentioned previously, UW-Whitewater has a special mission to serve students with disabilities. And this year we're estimating that we will serve a little under 1,000 students with self-identified disabilities. For more than 40 years, we have taken to heart this mission. And it spreads across campus, not just in the Center for Students with Disabilities, but our faculty and staff embrace this mission, and we're continually looking for new ways to help. Next, we will hear from Dr. Steve Sayun, a member of the physics department. He'll explain his mission to make the sciences more accessible and how students are helping with that effort. And I believe he also has a gift for you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Chancellor Kopper. Are the maps being handed out? They're being handed out. Okay, great. So I'm Dr. Stephen Sayun. I'm from the physics department. I have with me Christopher Marshall, who is working on a project. My area of specialization is in physics education research with an emphasis on students with visual disabilities. My project on tactile physics learning objects began last year when my colleague, Professor Oscar Yavuzzian, who is a nanophysics specialist, acquired a 3D printer. And I looked at that 3D printer and I said, oh, that would be a really neat tool to be able to make some objects that teachers at remote locations could use for their students who may have special needs and may need a tactile image, object that the students could touch and feel and manipulate instead of just looking at a picture if they weren't able to understand that picture. Now, coincidentally, last year, our current Chancellor, Dr. Kopper, provided funding for faculty to fund students for research. And I was able to use a portion of that funding to support 2 students. And one is Chris, and the other one is Rebecca Holzer. And she is currently a dual degree engineering student at UW-Madison. And Rebecca's project was to create a pulley. And so I have an example of one of these tactile physics learning objects right here. And it's a pulley, and the pulley has special indicators on it so students can feel the relative motion of the wheel relative to the base. Okay, so they can do this with the idea that then this file is put onto the web and a teacher at a remote location could download that for their students that need that. The way we created this object was we used an industry standard program called AutoCAD and to create a 3D model and then we took that model file and then printed it off, much like printing on paper, except in this case it's plastic. In order to learn the AutoCAD program to help my students, I started making a little model of Upham Hall, which is where my office building is. And before I knew it, I had a map of campus, which you should have at your tables. So now I had this map of campus. I thought, oh, this would be a great tactile map for any students who have low vision or impaired vision. I brought it to Dr. Elizabeth Watson at the Center of Students for Disabilities. She's the director of the center's CSD. And I was consulting with her for advice and feedback about the map. And the result from the feedback was to use high contrast printing. And so I have 2 colors on here, purple and white, good Whitewater colors. And other features are Braille labels for the buildings. And there's a star for the location of the Center for Students with Disabilities. And there's a ring on the map which represents the Minneska Springs water feature, which is a prime auditory landmark on campus. So these are a couple of the features of the map. Now, I also have for you a courtesy of Professor Eric Compass at the Department of Geography and Geology campus map. This is a project. Eric Compass is the director of the Geographic Information Systems Center, and he had two students working with him on a project to create an updated campus map. And this is a print version, and there's also an online version as well. But you can see how the tactile map corresponds to the printed map right there. Next, I'd like to introduce Chris. Chris is a junior physics student, and he'll tell you about his project.
My project was to create a Braille slate using the AutoCAD program. Now, normally, Braille uses a set of 6 dots in order to create a character, and these can be written using a Braille slate such as this one. The 6-dot Braille cell allows for only a maximum of 64 characters, which, while being adequate for writing, like for text, is generally inadequate for writing math and science. However, by using an 8-dot Braille cell, 256 unique characters can then be created. So many of these math and scientific characters can more easily be represented. I created the first ever 8-dot slate that can be produced on a 3D printer so that students can more easily learn math and science, and this is the result. This project intrigued me because it aligned with my desire to improve the world and to make science more accessible to those who want it. I also thought it would just be really cool to be able to make a physical object that can help students in the immediate future with trying to learn math and science. And I was excited to be able to work with an actual professor on this project. I saw the need that this project was filling, and being able to work on it really made a difference. And being an undergrad, I didn't think I would have the opportunity to do that until later. So I was very happy to be able to work on this project. Thank you.
So Rebecca's pulley and Chris's slate and the map here are all ways for our students to participate in research and design processes, but help other students both here at Whitewater and abroad. And I'd like to next introduce Professor Bob Benjamin, who's the chair of the physics department, and he'll tell you about his research and his students' research on the Milky Way galaxy.
Thanks, Steve. So if I could have the next slide. Yeah, thank you. In addition to being department chair, I'm actually also teach the introductory physics course for future scientists and engineers. And one of the very first things I do when they walk in the door, I have two things. First of all, I try to convince them that physics is useful. And I ask them, do you know where the electric thermostat came from? Does everyone here know where the electric thermostat came from? It was invented on this campus in 1883 by Professor Warren Johnson. And he realized that there was some commercial potential in this and went off to form Johnson Controls in Milwaukee. So that's reason number one why you should study physics. The second reason that you should study physics is because I try to be here at the university, is I say, do you know the difference between a high school teacher and a college professor? There's usually silence, just like now. Then, of course, I say, well, you know, a high school teacher can teach you their discipline. They can teach you their field. But when you get to the university, you actually have professors who not only know their field, but have contributed to it. They've created new knowledge, new interpretations of literature, new approaches to dance, new scientific discoveries. And all of these things, when you're at the university, not only can you catch up, but you can create. I mean, you can be part of the search for knowledge. And so I have to say that when I have students come in the door, I'm always thrilled to have them, to have that moment, to see them just starting to learn. And what I want to share with you today is both what I'm able to share with my students in terms of the research of searching for the Milky Way, but also what my students have shared back with me. So one of the things that I wanted to start off with is Professor Sayan gave you a map. I've given you, once you're off campus, I've given you another map to orient yourself. This map that you see here centered in the slide is a picture of the Milky Way that I developed in 2008 with a NASA artist because, of course, we cannot get outside our Milky Way. We're trapped inside it. This picture shows some of the principal features of the galaxy. Now, another little point of Wisconsin pride is the fact that the first evidence for the spiral structure in the Milky Way here, the first spiral arms, this one here called the Orion Spur and the Sagittarius Arm and the Perseus Arm, were discovered here in Wisconsin in 1951 by a professor, William Morgan. He was actually a professor from the University of Chicago working at Yerkes Observatory, and if you've never been to Yerkes, I would encourage you to go there because this is where that discovery was made. Many of his students became professors at the University of Wisconsin, actually a whole cadre of them, but those first three arms came from the Milky Way galaxy. And I have sort of fallen into this research project. When I first started it at UW-Whitewater, the same week I started was the day that NASA launched the Spitzer Space Telescope into space. And with collaborators at UW-Madison, our students here have had a steady access of data from this telescope over the last decade, and they are the first people to find things in this data. So for the Board of Regents, and I have given you both the map, and I've also assigned you a picture, okay, of a star-forming region somewhere in the Milky Way that the only thing we know about it right now is that it exists, okay? It was found in our data. Actually, many of them were found by a collaborative effort online. We have a website where people can contribute. And in the next year, these are all slated for follow-up. So in a year's time, if you will allow me, I will update you with the status of your star-forming region, okay? Who knows who's going to have the lucky star-forming region that turns out to be the special one in the galaxy. But over 3,000 of these have been discovered in the last few years. And my students have been part of that process. In fact, one of them is immortalized in glass on the third floor of Upham Hall. So since then, I've been able to use other telescopes to map out the galaxy. And this way I sort of think about my research is I let all of my students participate in the Milky Way galaxy, but I keep the whole galaxy for myself. And so I'd like to introduce now Andrew Egan, who will talk a little bit about his research on the Milky Way.
Hi. I just wanted to start and say that sometimes it takes a little bit of time to realize what you got yourself into. So I just wanted to thank everybody here for actually taking the time to listen to us. But as Professor Benjamin was describing his research studying the structure of the galaxy through the stars, you can also learn a little bit about the galaxy through looking at the gas in between in the galaxy. So what we have here is a map of the galaxy. As you can see along the center here is the plane of the Milky Way. We have bright regions of optical emission that we like to call bubbles, and above and below the plane of the galaxy we see that there is gas present there as well. Now, before I tell you about what I did during my summer on this research, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and how I ended up at Whitewater. So I wasn't always motivated by school. I wasn't your ideal student. So right after high school, I decided to go into the real world, and I spent 5 years between places, living in more than a few different houses, being let go from more than a few jobs. So I decided at that point the real world wasn't quite ready for me yet. So I decided to go to school as a non-traditional first-generation student, not knowing what he wanted to do. Really, it was at freshman orientation where I decided that physics was kind of where I would want to go. I enjoy a challenge, and so far it's been a good fit, and I've been able to do a lot of stuff. Also at freshman orientation, I was introduced to a program called ULEAD. This program is designed for freshmen that are incoming. Anybody can sign up for it. Usually nobody's denied access to this program. But really, it was familiarizing freshmen with opportunities on campus, and for me, it really inspired me to take advantage of those opportunities. With that inspiration, I'd like to add, from my freshman year, my first week, I had started 3 research projects. I'd say finished, but finished is a little loosely defined in research. I've worked on campus from one-on-one tutoring to group efforts with science outreach. I've also become project manager of SPS, or the Society of Physics Students, with hopes of becoming president this year. You know, the efforts that we did in the Society of Physics Students were aimed at informing other students of the opportunities in the physics field, or for someone like me. These are just a few of the things that I've done since I've started at Whitewater. But now, my most recent opportunity was a chance to research for NASA over the summer, which, you know, being a sophomore at the time is kind of like, whoa. So what did I discover? I learned to work with the data from the Wisconsin H-alpha mapper, which is a telescope that's been moved around a few times so that we could get an all-sky map, which you see here. So I used that data to look at the rotation of the galaxy, the rotation of the gas around the center of the galaxy. Another interesting thing that I learned during this time is that if you look above the galaxy, or below the galaxy, the gas is coming up, and if you look above the galaxy, the gas is coming down. So really, in terms of this galactic atmosphere that we have, the sky really is falling. So I just kind of want to finish it. You know, I spent 5 years wandering around, not doing much with my life, and 2 years at Whitewater have made me a NASA scientist. So.
So thank you, Andrew. That was awesome. So yes, you too can become a NASA scientist in 2 years. So I just wanted to say that, you know, I didn't have any idea what was in store for me when I started in Whitewater. This has been a fantastic place to work. It really has a feeling of being a family. And, you know, I guess I'm proud of what's happened with the Milky Way and my ability to make a difference in understanding that. But almost, you know, equal importance to me is the students that I've had over the years. And I don't have time to go through the stories of each individual student here. But this picture sort of encapsulates a moment I had a few years ago when I had current students. Tyler Engel here is a student who just finished his dual degree thing. He's actually got a degree in mechanical engineering. And all of these other students who are with us at the American Astronomical Society, I mean, it's like, my goodness, I've got a family of my own now. You know, Tyler in particular, his story is really inspirational. I brought him to his very first professional meeting. One of the things that drove him to become a mechanical engineer was to build a better wheelchair. And that desire was proven necessary when the airline broke his wheelchair on the way to the meeting. We had to push his wheelchair through the airport to make the next flight, and then the airline fixed it 2 days later. So he really was, that was a very scarring affair, and it sort of made me an activist for my students. So other students, Mike Dorn-Reed, some of you will be going to the Innovation Center. He was our first physics major there. Luma Fotung was one of my very first students, and I mentioned her work is on the glass of Upham Hall. And Alexander Fernandez is one of our most recent graduates, the only student I've ever had to win a national award at an American Astronomical Society meeting. And I don't have time to tell you his story, but you know, he's overcome all sorts of challenges to get where he is, which right now is in graduate school, pulling a 4.0 in gravitational physics. So I think that, you know, coming to Whitewater, there's all sorts of places you can go, and I'm very, very proud to be part of this university. Thanks.
So this is only a very small sampling of the extraordinary students, faculty, and staff that we have at this university. And there truly is a very special sense of family. And what we'd like to close with is a video that will show you some more of what it means to be a part of the Warhawk family.
One of the things I say is that I know this campus forwards and backwards, but backwards better.
One of the parts of the mission of Whitewater is to really develop that sense of community and make sure that all students are feeling that they're part of Whitewater. As soon as they come on campus, our main goal is to make them feel welcomed and to make them feel like they could see themselves at Whitewater.
I know that when I went to go onto grad school, one of the professors looked at my portfolio and she commented how she liked that I came from a smaller university. And she confirmed that students who come from a smaller university have more skill sets because they were able to work with the professors one-on-one.
They're always looking about what can we get in the classroom to help the students learn, what's the best way to engage the students and help them grow through technology.
We have some of the finest technology. We actually have a nuclear magnetic resonance machine, which is $300,000. If we were to go to a larger institution, I wouldn't be able to use this machine until I was a graduate student. But here, I got hands-on experience as an undergraduate student.
I'll be using a series of information graphics that are charts and graphs and a series of ceramic vessels that correspond with developing nations that struggle with undernourishment.
Without the undergraduate research support, so the funding and the time, which gave him the time to work on this, he would have been really restricted in terms of how far he could go in pushing his knowledge to a different level. And I don't believe that that could have been done in the classroom in a single semester.
My biggest goal for the Warwick Marching Band is that every member of the ensemble experiences excellence through performance. When that happens, that can permeate their entire college experience and go on to their life.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable. It can benefit you at the end of the day.
Ambition is important, especially in college. You know, life's not going to just hand you things. You have to go out and get them yourself. Whitewater supplies you with all the resources to do what you want.
I want to be one of those important, inspirational, helping teachers. I really, really, really think that a teacher can really make a difference in someone's life.
The teaching experience in Jamaica was really great. From day one, they were happy that you were there.
I've always wanted to be a teacher, but coming here to Jamaica, just the excitement out of the students made me feel very excited to bring that enthusiasm back to the States.
The week before midterms, my car had broken down and I needed to go to work. And I let him know that not only am I a non-traditional student, but I also commute. And he didn't ask any questions. He explained what I missed, and he allowed me to take my midterm with no points deducted or anything like that.
If you're not patient, you shouldn't be in the teaching business, period.
There was one Sunday he came in during a Packer game and went to the whiteboard and explained everything to me. And so I felt like he needed to be nominated. Somebody needs to know professors like him that help non-traditional students.
I looked at colleges where I would be the only blind student there, and I just felt kind of like I would be singled out. But every day I pass people in wheelchairs, I pass people on crutches. I think it just felt more like I could picture myself here. I'm taking an astronomy class right now, and sometimes the professor will have equations up on the board, but she'll be talking about something else. So I'll take notes about what she's talking about, and the in-class aide would write down the equations. If you open your eyes and just look around, you'll be surprised who you meet.
We don't have privileged kids there. We have salt of the earth kids, and maybe they've never seen this. So this is a good chance to show them it. They're the kind of students that are going to push me to make them do the most that they can do.
And we have Lauren helping, and George and I, maybe Cal. We could have him helping too.
I thought they were insane, but they were like, we're going to go down this hill. I was like, that's a cliff, George.
I was like, yeah, right, okay. Oh, okay, sure, we'll go down there, all right.
Like, I'm pretty brave, but even that looks like a cliff, basically. So I had to give all my trust to George and trust in him that he would lead me down the right path.
Wow! It took a lot of the bumps out. I was still bouncing every which way, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it probably would have been.
We had one mat, drive on, move it, go to the front, drive on, go to the front, on and on and on, until we got to hard enough ground for my wheels to drive on. Terrifying, but exhilarating.
Damn few people ever seen a wolf, and fewer yet have tracked a wolf. And right where you are, there was a wolf.
And then we actually found the tracks of the wolf, and then it was all worth it after that, putting the plaster in and getting the mold. Oh, this is so awesome.
Oh, look what's coming out.
It was really cool to see once you cleaned it off, the paw prints, and it was like a piece of history that you'll always have.
The feeling, it overwhelmed me for a while. I teared up a little, just the fact that I had accomplished something to that extent.
I didn't think that was possible, but it happened, so no, I think we could pretty much do anything now.
Hi, my name is Sarah Regents. I'm a student at UW-Whitewater, and I'm currently working on a research project that involves the market for locally grown hydroponic vegetables.
This is a key part where students really do make a difference in the surrounding community, and we can bring that sort of innovation and those new ideas and start new businesses.
Warhawks are people who are willing to serve, willing to go the extra mile. If something needs to get done, they're going to go above and beyond.
They've taught me a lot of things, but definitely determination and integrity and discipline and all those really basic elements that you sometimes take for granted. They really work on making sure that you don't forget those.
Seeing them play on ESPN, not only football, but I looked at the other programs and saw that every program was winning and winning championships, and that's something I want to do as an athlete. And then on the school side, there's no better place to come for an education. I get the best of both worlds, and I think our coaches hold us to a higher standard. Classroom-wise, they're constantly doing checkups on us, making sure that we're going to class and getting all our work done. So it's a lot more than just showing up on Saturdays and playing in front of thousands of people.
Major in business finance with emphasis in financial planning. I met Floyd through the mentor program here on campus. It was a great opportunity. We meet probably about maybe once, twice a month. He asked me how my classes were going, and he prepared me for the next step after college too. how I can tie my abilities that I've learned here on campus to the job setting and the business.
Without question, you can compete with anyone, and you have received a superior education here.
And just when you think you're unprepared to take on the real world, remember, you're a Warhawk. You already have all the preparation you could ever need. Congratulations.
So one of the reasons, and one of the many reasons I love being at this university, it is truly a community of passionate learners. And now at this time, we'd like to answer any questions, and I say we, because if you ask me any physics questions, I'm definitely deferring those to my colleagues. And seeing none, we thank you very much for certainly all that you do, all your support, and all of your service. Thank you.
Over the years, UW-Whitewater has earned a reputation as a vibrant hub of activity and innovation in southeast Wisconsin. And today we've heard more about how and why that is. Pathways to Success, Warhawk Leadership Academy, Accessibility and the Sciences, ULI. We can clearly see what lies ahead. Thank you very much, Chancellor Kopper. And a special thanks to the student greeters and their special gift. I assure you we will enjoy reading about your UW experience and your home experiences, and we look forward to having a conversation not only with you but with other students at breakfast tomorrow morning. So I encourage my Regent colleagues, join me early tomorrow morning for breakfast so we can hear more great stories from these fine students. Thank you very much. Now, at this time, we're going to turn our attention to our latest UW System Accountability Reports. These reports represent our commitment to providing our stakeholders with a detailed assessment of what we're doing and how well we're doing it. It is important not only to our institutions, but also to our many diverse stakeholders, from students and their families to legislators to every tax-paying resident in the state who has an investment in the UW system. As a board, this is one of our key responsibilities, to examine and analyze the performance of our institutions and use that information to inform our policy decisions. The work we've done with accountability reporting over the years demonstrates that we're delivering on the significant investment that people make in higher education in this state. That commitment to transparency and accountability has never been more important. We are very thorough in this reporting, and we produce a great deal of data. In fact, there are some who have suggested that perhaps we actually need to simplify the accountability reporting. We have taken a close look at doing that, while still meeting our responsibilities, both internally and externally, for complete and comprehensive reporting. We have embarked on a new type. David Ward, Interim Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs, will present and explain this year's reports. First, to say a few words, President Cross. President Cross?
Thank you, Regent President Milner. I'd like to start by reminding everyone that this is the 21st year that we've done this. We were the first in the United States as a system to do this. So we have a few years' experience. And I'm also pleased with the progress we're making to better explain and help others understand how we're trying to be accountable, open, transparent. Senator Harsdorf and other legislators have been working with us to refine these metrics in ways that mean something to the legislature and are useful on a statewide basis. As I suggested in April, I made a comment that we really would not secure flexibility unless there was accountability. Accountability is that important. So I'm glad with this ongoing dialogue, there's still some work to be done as we attempt to refine and further refine what we're doing to make it more meaningful and useful. So today what you're going to see, I think, will be very impressive. It was to me, and I think it's going to be very useful. The dashboard indicators that we will present, we're calling the accountability indicators, formally were in written documents. Over 40, what we thought were 43, that grew to be 46, and some would say it's still over 50 measures of accountability. So this will give you the ability to go online, play around with it, investigate, probe, analyze, along with allowing others to do that, namely the public. It's a tremendous tool for families, legislators, and of course our partners throughout and stakeholders throughout the system. It represents, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of many others, a huge step forward. It's incredibly easy if you look at it, and it's intuitive in the way it operates, to help you analyze, compare, well, how does that compare to another institution? And you can even probe as to how those numbers were selected or how those peers were selected. It's very interactive with charts and maps. It helps illustrate things in a digestible and user-friendly manner. There is one last but very important point that I'd like to make about this reporting process. As always, it contains lots and lots of data. What's necessary for interpreting data is context. Some frame of reference to give meaning to the numbers that are being reported, and finding ways not to use them in isolation unless it's appropriate. How do we do that? As David will further explain, we do that by identifying peer groups, by being transparent about the content. We must remember that each UW institution is unique, and this also is important, with different missions, different characteristics, different student bodies. In some cases, looking at each institution's data within the context of its peer group can be more useful, more instructive, or helpful than comparing one UW institution to another. With that, I'll turn it over to Vice President Ward.
Thank you very much, President Cross, and welcome to the Accountability Report. So this afternoon, you're going to get me to drive you through this. I must explain at the outset, I've been trained, but I'm not sure the training has stuck. So you have in your packet some slides. And what we're going to do, if all works well, is we're going to start out in a PowerPoint. You happen to have all of your slides in sort of PowerPoint pictures. Then at the magical point in the presentation, when the technology works, we're going to go live to the dashboard site, which is a secure site right now. We're going to go through and demonstrate the features of the dashboard. Then we're going to come out of the dashboard back to the PowerPoint. So if you see some clicking going on, that's what I'm doing up here. So let's start out. First, a little bit on accountability, context-wise. Accountability starts, this is sort of genesis, if you will, in 1993 when Governor Thompson appoints an accountability task force. I was one of the charter members of the accountability task force in 1993. Then accountability, out of that came some accountability measures. Several revisions of the accountability reports followed as additional measures were added. This is all printed material. And then we had institutional reports added to that, again, printed material. And then the legislature in 2011 passed Act 32, which required us to report a total of, and the President has it right, 46 measures, and to be able to separate those measures between Madison and all the other campuses. So there was a little bit of we needed to have some flexibility to do that. All of this is being replaced with an accountability dashboard. And the accountability dashboard is going to bring us into the digital age of accountability, if you will. Now, I want to draw a bright line here. So you all, most of you all this morning, were talking about accountability measures. I said in a presentation, you're all getting big doses of accountability. You got it this morning, you got it this afternoon, you're going to get some more of it Friday morning. So you'll be immune to whatever disease comes from it. But this morning, what you looked at were the accountability measures from the 2015-17 budget. So that's yet another accountability spot on this chart. Those measures, some of which are already in that accountability dashboard, but some are not, are being kept as a separate set, and eventually what we'll do is we'll meld those probably into a sub-dashboard so we have both of those available. All right, so the new dashboard fulfills the purpose of accountability reports while making information accessible in new ways. Remember, it replaces all of those 18 paper reports. The key focus is on performance indicators, items central to our system-wide mission or strategically important or required by statute. So we'll be going through some of those. The dashboard provides you with trends and benchmarks against peer and national data. Finally, the dashboard is interactive. It allows you to drill down for more detail. Most importantly, I think, is the dashboard does a great job of visualizing the data. And as opposed to the paper report in front of you where you can look at a table and kind of, draw what you can from it, the dashboard puts that in terms of charts, graphs, and maps, which I think are much more useful. So what are we going to do? We're going to do a dashboard demonstration. I'm going to try to teach you how to use the dashboard. It's actually pretty easy to use. And at the end, I'll be giving you some help points in case when you got to actually do it tomorrow when it comes live at noon, you forgot how to do it. We're going to demonstrate a few of the measures in the dashboard to show you the features, and also it'll show you some data. Then we're going to go back and we're going to look at a summary of some performances, some things that I've drawn out of the dashboard that are challenges, some things that I think are accomplishments. And after that, we'll have time for questions and answers. So there are 46 measures in the dashboard. Again, it'll be publicly available tomorrow at noon. I want to draw another distinction, what the dashboard is and what it is not. The dashboard first meets our board legislative and legislatively mandated requirements for reporting in the accountability space. It also does visualization of that data. What the dashboard is not, it doesn't begin to reflect a fraction of all of the data we have in addition to that. So we have lots of data in addition. This is critically focused on our accountability measures. So you all should be at this point in the presentation, and you have a picture of what the home page of the dashboard looks like. All right, so here comes the first leap of faith. We are going to leap to the dashboard live. We're now live on the dashboard. All right? You can't tell the difference, I mean, right? But if I tell you so, you'll believe me, I'm sure. So you as you get to the dashboard, you use your cursor to navigate around, and there are these clusters or areas on the dashboard, the clusters of accountability measures. Access, progress and completion, cost and efficiency, you can read the rest. So we're going to start this out by looking at one of the points of where the accountability measures lie on access. Access would measure how are we serving the state, who's coming to our campuses. And by clicking on that, we get to the page, the front page, if you will, of that access section. And I'm using the wheel to kind of get this up so you can see all of it. So I'm going to illustrate three features, 1, 2, 3. That's the kind of standard teaching techniques that I always used. 1, we're going to look at the ribbon. 2, we're going to look at the filter. And 3, we're going to look at the slider. What those will do is allow you to navigate, to look at individual campuses, and look at time or sequences of data. So let's look at that. What is this that we're looking at? We're looking at fall total enrollments in the UW system. So as you put your cursor on that bar, you get the fall total enrollments in the UW system in 2014. That's the blue bar. The yellow, which is a little bit hard to hit, but if you put the finger right on it, it works, gives you the FTE, or full-time equivalents. Now, you'd say, well, what is a full-time equivalent, right? First question out of your head. So down here is a little box called Technical Notes. And in Technical Notes, you'd click on that, and up pops the definition in each category of the data that you're looking at. So most of these definitions are kind of standard national definitions, but at any point you can go to this. All right, so number 1, how did we get here? Well, this bar up here, this ribbon bar, contains all of the indicators in this grouping. And so in a little bit, we're going to go to another of the indicators. By navigating like this, we can get to all of the indicators in this cluster. So that's the ribbon or the navigator. The second is the filter. So over here, you see, by clicking on that, you get all of the institutions in the UW system. Right now, it's the format that you're looking at is every campus. Well, remember I said you have to provide not only all of the data, but in that Act 32, you have to provide Madison and then everybody else. So you say, all right, well, what was the data without Madison? Just click it out, and there you have the data for everybody except Madison. Click it back in. We're back into the all mode up here. Unclick all. Now, what was the enrollment for Madison? So we just click Madison. So we can go to any campus, and we can find the data for that campus. I heard some good news this morning about Whitewater, or this afternoon. So if I want to go to Whitewater, there are other enrollments for Whitewater. As the Chancellor said, record enrollments. Now, she mentioned this fall. Now, you notice the data goes up to 2014. So I already had a question or two from Regents. Where's the 2015 data? Right. I mean, you give them something, then they get impatient, right? So the data takes time to collect. We don't collect the data until the 10th day of class, which isn't going to happen until next week. Because of the ins and outs, the drops, the adds, withdrawals, that sort of thing. Here we have the data for Whitewater. We'll add the 2015 data, the data the Chancellor was talking about. When that data is all cleaned up and it comes in, it'll be middle of the fall, probably when that data is added. All right, so we've illustrated again the navigation through the ribbon, the filter, which allows us to go campus by campus. So let's just kind of click back to everybody, and there you have the total enrollment again. The last feature I want to demonstrate is the time slider. So up here, I have to click off that filter. They keep reminding me of that. So far we have data up here that's from the year 2000 to the year 2014. Well, history began before that for the UW system, which many of you know. So we take that slider and we slide it back to the beginning of the data set. And this data set begins in 1973. Formation of the system was in 1971, but I can testify in the first couple of years it was pretty much chaos. And I was there. And so we got to the data by 1973 in a consistent manner. So the data goes from 1973 to the year 2014. You can see the rise and the fall in the data, which is pretty much paralleled by the FTE. And you can look at many sets of the data, not everything, but many sets of the data. And you can take that slider and you can look at the trend, which is really important to do, because I'll make this point several times. Year-to-year data tends to be lumpy. But if you take a bigger picture, it tends to smooth out, give you a better picture. All right, so remember again, 1, 2, 3, the ribbon to navigate, the filter to get to a campus or a set of campuses, whatever you want to do, and the slider to get you the time sequence or the series in effect. All right, so that's, I think, a good illustration, a good first illustration of this, and I've told you about the technical notes. So now we're going to use this navigator, and we're going to go up there, and the third one in here says, where do UW freshmen come from? Okay. Oh, well, we have unexpected error. All right. All right. Right over here? Up there. No? I've got my faithful assistant here. This happened once before. In fact, the thing completely went out when we did it in front of the legislators, and we had to come. We had to get gateway.
So, since this is a live website, we're going out and it's gathering back a lot of information, and occasionally those connections don't always come through clearly. And the maps in particular take a little while to load.
So this is another illustration of a different way of visualizing the map. Where do our students come from? And it allows you to look at county by county, where do our freshmen come from? So you can put your map on any county. There's Langley County, there's Oneida County. I always go to my home county, Door County. There are 71 new freshmen in the UW system from Door County. We can go state by state, go to every state and find in every state how many from Texas, for example. And we've got a world calculation here, so how many students from China? Just short of 300. This allows us to look at that, and remember our filter's right over here. So let's say that we want to find out where are the freshmen coming from UW Green Bay. Map appears. I click off so that the filter disappears, then I can get these highlights. And so I can go county by county, I can go state by state, and country by country for every campus to show where our students come from. So the mapping is another very, I think, nifty feature of this. A third piece of this is what % of high school graduates enroll in the UW system. I like to use this because it illustrates the importance of that time slider. So this looks pretty consistent. Over here to the right, you see the number of high school graduates. So put the cursor on it and you know year by year how many high school graduates there are. Over here is the percentage of those high school graduates that go to the UW system. So roughly, 32% is a pretty good average of that particular line right there. So about 32% of the high school graduates come on to a UW campus. I like to take that slider now and throw that back because it's kind of interesting to look at the longer term trend Back in the old days, this is what, 1978 is where that begins, we were serving about 25% of the students. That's risen over time. We sort of plateaued out in recent times. Another access point that we want to look at is underserved minority groups. So this maps out the percentage of students who come from various racial groups and ethnic groups who go on to the University of Wisconsin, percentage of seniors. So the Asian participation rate is 37%. Down here, American Indian, 10%, African American, 10%, Hispanic, about 22%, and there's for white students. So now we're going to navigate out of this cluster of accountability measures. So we were in access. Remember, we were on the home page. The safest route, I'm trying to keep you safe now when you're on this website. Safest route is to go right back up here to where it says the accountability dashboard. Click on that, and you're going to get back to the home page again. We're going to look at progress and completion. So the first thing that's going to come up is retention rates. And this is going to give us a chance to look at another feature of the dashboard, which is peer and national data comparisons, because we think it's important that you're comparing similar institutions in the UW to similar institutions elsewhere in the country. So the retention rate, first of all, this is for everybody, the whole system. So our retention rate was actually at a record last year of 82.1% as measured across the whole system. To illustrate the peer and the national measures, let me go down here, and it comes the clearest for UW-Madison. Shows up nicely so that if I handle this thing right, I won't do what I did before, which is advance a slide. And I got a pointer. So for UW-Madison, here's the peer comparison. So Madison's retention rate, I got to click off the filter, is 95.4%. Very, very high rate. That was in 2013. We'll have, again, we have data will be updated as it comes in. In 2012, the rate was 95.2%. The peer rate was 90.9%. The national rate was 79.9%. So I think this is a very important feature to compare institutions that are comparable or peers. Now, again, question comes up, well, who are the peer institutions for Madison? You can go down into the technical notes. I've been advised not to go too deep here because I'll get lost. And in the technical notes, you'll have your retention and graduation peers. And there's an Excel file there that will show for each. But I'm told if I get in there, I might never get out again. And you'd be here for a long time. So that's another feature of this that allows you to, well, that was scary. Allows you to compare that. All right, so I'm going to go to another measure up here, which is we're going to look at retention rates. So use the ribbon again. There's retention rates by groups. So you can look at underrepresented minority groups, et cetera. We can look at graduation rates, the key measure. This happens to be 6-year rates. We can do 4-year rates or 6-year rates. Again, we can do it over time by taking that slider out. We can see the pretty much continuous improvement in graduation rates over that period of time. I guess if we go back to when time started, 1973, it's pretty much a continuous function in which graduation rates have been rising. So I'm going to go to one more measure here, which I think is really important. It happened to come up yesterday when I was leading the New North Strategic Planning Retreat. It's this measure right here. How many students continue or graduate? What's the total for what are we looking at here? So we're looking at new freshmen here who started in the fall of 2008. All right? And the reason that I'm saying this is that in the course of the strategic planning session today, someone offered the observation that, well, most students who go to college don't graduate, and only about 25% of them graduate. I restrained myself. It was sort of a group discussion, so I didn't want to insert myself. But this measure is really interesting. I think you as Regents should be interested in this bar chart here, this of new freshmen. So a first-time, full-time student starting in the fall of 2008 who graduated from the same UW institution, just short of 61%, 60.7%. But we have a lot of transfers, about 16,000 transfers a year. When we add that in, that's another 5.5% of students who started in the UW system and completed there, somewhere in the UW system. So adding those two there is 66%. Then we have the students who started at a UW institution and went to a non-UW institution. That's another 3.8%. So we're now up to roughly 70%. And then we account for students who are still full-time students in the UW system. That's another 4.4%, and another 4.6% are full-time students at another institution other than the UW. The total number is the one I want to draw your attention to. So 79% of students that came in the fall of 2008 are still, they're either graduated or they're still active in higher education. I think that's a very important number and one which we should talk about. All right, I'm going to go back and navigate once more. I'm coming close to the end of the navigation, so we'll kind of move on. I'm going to go to the economic development area. And we have a number of measures here, research funding, STEM, and let's see, I think this is the one. Where in the United States do UW alums live? Another map. And the map visualizes the data, and you actually get to, if you go over these dots, which, you know, you'll have to be patient because it's a big mass of dots right there. It's by zip code. Where do our alumni live? So I look at this map. I don't know what conclusion you draw, but I look at it. The green dots represent Wisconsin residents who graduated from a UW institution. We've got a huge number in Wisconsin, the Twin Cities, and the Chicago area. I think these are all retirees down here. And over here in Phoenix, maybe a few over there in Colorado. But here's the kind of the interesting point. And we can do this by institution, by the way. Here's the interesting point. So I'm going to click off, and I'm going to start with just Wisconsin residents. So that's where they live. And that's the great preponderance of our enrollment. Well, what about the kids that come to us from Minnesota, reciprocity students? Where do they live? And again, we can go zip code by zip code and find out how many graduates. A bunch of them up there, 1,681 in 54115. Where is that? Anybody know offhand? I don't know that, but wherever it is, there's a bunch of them. And we can track this, which is, I think, the key point I would like to make with this. These are out-of-state students, not from Minnesota, not from Wisconsin, obviously. So these are our graduates, and we retain a good number of them if you look again at the zip codes and where they're living, a bunch of them go back to Minnesota or come to Minnesota. A bunch of them stay around here, and a bunch of them return to the coast and so forth. But this to the point about out-of-state students and attracting brain power to the state of Wisconsin and keeping that brain power in the state. I don't think we overtly try to do that, and if we did, we might even do a better job of keeping them with us. All right, one last thing on the dashboard, and we're back to the main page. So each of these areas has data in it. We didn't talk about cost and efficiency. It's got cost of attendance, a variety of measures of affordability, time and credits to degree. On the undergraduate experience, we have student participation on high-impact practices, which you've seen quite a bit of here at UW-Whitewater. Under faculty and academic staff, we have employees by category, race, ethnicity, by compensation gap, faculty turnover. Economic development, we showed you a measure or two there. Down here, if you click on the institutional highlights, that's going to take you to the various campus institution web pages. So that's a link off the accountability measure to the institutions where they have their own website. So when the dashboard goes live tomorrow, when? Noon. Yeah, at noon, you'll be able to do this yourself. And I think you'll have some fun doing it. I've learned something. I've been around for quite a while, as most of you know. And I've learned a lot of things that just by going through this dashboard and taking this out. So we're gonna leave this, ideally. Yeah, I think we did. We're going to go back over to the presentation. Again, keep in mind the institution's unique missions and those peer groups, the ability to do trends over time, and the fact that questions that you raise and answers you get lead to more questions. You have to put context, which President Cross mentioned. So now, as we're kind of winding down here, I want to talk about yes.
Does this replace the individual function of the
It does. Yep, it does. And the big book, the one that's the whole system. So what challenges are there that are sort of pop out of looking at the dashboard? You can draw your own conclusions on this, but this is what I see. Equity gaps, again, the gap in terms of both participation rates and graduation rates and retention rates of underrepresented minorities. Unmet financial need. There's still an average something of $8,000 of unmet financial need for those who are applying for financial aid. Faculty compensation is, I think you're familiar with the data on that, that overall we're 19% below peers, Madison 18%, comprehensive 21%. And higher enrollment, education enrollment in Wisconsin. Now that's not really in the indicators. I've drawn that out, but it's built on the fact of looking at those enrollment numbers for the UW. This is the total higher education enrollment, UW, technical colleges, private colleges in Wisconsin. You get a little bit of, I think, recessionary effect, always kind of goes up. But it's worrisome to look at this measure because it's declining. Declining in a advancing skills and jobs market. And if you look at how it kind of breaks out, our enrollment has been more or less flat. We actually peaked out back here in about 2010. We're down maybe 1,100, something like that. But aggregately, I think we all ought to be looking at that number and be thinking about what the statewide goal for higher education attainment should be. All right, so some good news, lots of good news in this data. Enrollments, retention, graduation rates, number of degrees are at or above all-time highs. So from an output standpoint, those measures are good. Cost of attendance, you can look at the various measures, are below the national average. We're about at the national average for student participation and for college experience and high impact practices. Other good news, our employee diversity is increasing. The administrative spending as measured by those national measures is below the national average. Research funding is at an all-time high. Degrees in STEM and healthcare at all-time highs. And alumni from Wisconsin, again, going back to that map, percentage of our alums that stay in the state is very high. And there's some research about it. Chancellor Sandine could probably talk about it, about the boomerang effect, where we're starting to see graduates coming back, our graduates who left the state are coming back in. All right, with that, that completes the demonstration. One last thing. What happens if you go live tomorrow at noon and you're on here and you just did what I did a couple times and got lost somewhere? The Policy Analysis Research Team is available to help you. And that's Sue Booth and her team. And there is some contact information right in the dashboard itself. We're putting together a web video, which is actually the embedded video here in case the technology didn't work, which demonstrates this. And finally, we'd be glad to arrange a tutorial for anybody to go through this. With that, I'll see if you have any questions.
Just got a couple. I mentioned this morning in a committee meeting, and I think it bears repeating today. One of the things that over time our board's been criticized for is a lack of transparency, and this aims to get directly at that, and it's a mandate of ours. What kind of socialization has gone on in the preliminary aspects of the delivery of this with our legislative counterparts?
So far, it's been limited to demonstrating it to the two chairs of the higher ed committees. We face this chicken or egg thing. We can't roll the thing out before we show our board this, right? So post-board, I think September 17th, we're doing, maybe I'm going to drive, I don't know. Maybe Ray wants to drive. We're doing a demonstration to the joint committee. You know what it is, Ray, so why don't you?
We are doing a joint presentation. We have, to your point, Regent Peterson, I think we have to move away from making the presentation and letting people get into it and then ask questions. Maybe that's the way I learn. But we also are interested in focusing on equipping the staff so the staff from key legislators understand how to access and use this, isolate variables, and do analytical work with it and say, hey, what's going on here? Why is this happening? I think it speaks to your point about transparency and ease of use, but the socialization of how to use it is critically important. Otherwise, it's like the paper report it sits on the shelf.
Second point is just, the level of sophistication seems very high. There's a great amount of data here, and I think you can slice it and cross-tab it very well. An obvious question one would have, and I think I know the answer to, is was this an expensive, unfunded mandate, and how did we deal with that?
Well, I think the remarkable thing about this is it was largely built inside by our people. Now, was it expensive? Well, we had to invest their time. But not only the Policy Analysis Research Team, OAIS, others all contributed to this. I think the only out-of-pockets were that visualization you see in here is Tableau, which is a very powerful visualization software. We had to hire a consultant, bless the consultants, to come in and do this, but the consultant also trained our staff, so we now have skills in that area. But that was about it.
Yeah, as we roll that out, I would take the opportunity to point that out. I think this is extremely well done by our faculty and by our staff, and it's commendable.
And with that, Sue, would you stand up, and David? And I suppose the team that helped put this together is watching by television, so I think we should give you a round of applause. And I think
there were a couple of others here from the team this morning. I don't know if Todd Bailey is here, or Eric Durkee, or I know Heather Kim is listening in.
Heather, thank you.
Heather was the key driver here for getting this going, so applause to her as well.
Regent Farrell?
David, could you remind us, was this in the budget or added to the budget by the Joint Finance Committee?
This actually was not in the budget in terms of a requirement. It's our idea to visualize the data and present it. It was a way to take all of the reporting and try to streamline it and get it into a digital age. So we didn't have to do this. We could continue to print reports.
My misunderstanding. But I absolutely agree with Regent Peterson that they should know the cost, time, and manpower cost that was put into this in the effort to be transparent. I mean, this is a good, strong, reaction to the need for transparency that we've been hearing for 2 years now, two plus years now, 2.5 years before I got here. And I think we should let them know, and I think it should be required reading for every legislator and governor's staff person.
Might I add to that, while this was not required, the 46 was not required in legislation this year. Some of it was previously in Act 32. But the 4 categories that David also talked about, and we mentioned that was in this year's budget. They will eventually be embedded into this. Margaret?
I don't know how many of you have had an opportunity to go through this with the staff, but I've had an opportunity. I found it a very useful tool. Both the immediate reporting, the reporting between and among the campuses, but also the historic reporting has been for me, it's been very useful. Are there other questions? Regent Mueller?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for this. This is really I'm sure, a great improvement, and I'm looking forward to navigating this. I always feel I'm sounding cautionary notes, though, and I'm doing that again this year. I distinctly remember praising you last year when we went through the book, because in terms of comprehensiveness, I think our accountability measures are greater than any other states. We cover a lot of ground. But sometimes the quality of the data wasn't very strong. And my cautionary note always is this is only as good as the quality of the data that went into it. And there can be definitional differences and just plain errors that can occur. So I think over time those will come out in the wash, so to speak. But particularly for finance, which is very much on the minds of all of our stakeholders, I think there are a lot of definitional differences out there. And I'll be eager to navigate that. But again, on the whole, this is very impressive. Just a technical question about using it on an iPad that we would all have at home. Is this too powerful? Is this too much for it, and we're going to be frustrated for the average user?
It should work just fine on a regular-sized tablet with a web browser. We've tested it on the major browsers and tablets. It is not designed for viewing on a small screen like a phone, so you will not be able to see the whole image. The complexity and quantity of information we were trying to convey, we were not able to develop something that was small enough for your phone. But tablets and desktops and laptops should be just fine.
Thank you.
May I follow up with that, Regent Mueller? You raised a really good point, because it isn't just context, it's quality of the data. And we would hope you would always, as you look through this, if you see something that doesn't make sense or appears to be inappropriate, bring that to our attention. Let us figure out exactly what we're talking about here. Also, it's important to note that, and I think that, I know that you're particularly sensitive to this, some of this is aligned with how national groups or other institutions use this data. May not be as useful. And something that's important for me as a manager is that I have to own this data. It can't just be because I'm trying to provide it to the legislature. We have to own this data. These are our metrics. This is how we look at it. So if you see something that you think should be added, and I would encourage each of you to do that, let us know.
Regent Pruitt. Thank you. David, could you go back to your progress and completion slide? I just had it's a relatively small question, but it was interesting to me. If you can. Okay, never mind. Don't bother.
Wait. Wait.
Oh, okay. All right.
Wait. Don't. Let's see here. We'll wake the mouse up and see where we can go. Progress and completion. You mean actually in the?
Yeah. When you were doing when you were showing the slide, you had the chart of completion by. Remember that?
Oh yes, yes.
Starts
Okay.
Where you start at one institution, you keep going.
This is a great test. We're back live.
Oh, we're back live again.
Back
oh
live.
My, I didn't realize I was getting this into
Progress and
I
completion.
apologize to everyone.
And we're going to go, I think, way to the end.
Can we applaud?
There it is.
There we go.
Right?
Great. Well done.
Thank you.
So my question is this an advance in our knowledge from what we knew before? Because this has been a continual question for too long in terms of tracking students where they start at one institution and go to another. And I know there are some of our comprehensives who have been very frustrated because their graduation rates have been potentially suppressed because students transfer from their institution to another institution, get a degree, and they don't count for their graduation rate. It looks to me like you've cracked the code here, and that you now have new information which will enable us to both do this and hopefully also track back success rates to individual campuses. So if a student starts at Parkside and graduates at Madison, Parkside doesn't get a demerit for having had that student just leave and go to another. Is that the case?
I think you're right. I cracked the code is a great phrase. You know, we might tag that.
You can have it. Put it on your dashboard there.
Put it on the dashboard. But I was surprised by this. And as I said before, I've been around since, dirt was created here. And I was surprised by this. I knew that our internal rates were, when I added the same institution plus another institution, were somewhere around 65, 66%. I'd not counted in the notion of, I always talk about the 3 M's. The reason you don't have perfect retention rate is the 3 M's: mortality, morbidity, and mobility. Think about that for a minute. So people move, people get sick, and people pass away. If you look at that and you think about all those factors affecting the flow of our students, and you say, now, could we do better? Sure. We'd like to be at 100%, right? But you'll never be at 100% because of those factors. Somebody's going to move to Florida or whatever is going to happen. But when you start adding those other figures up, I think it tells a tremendous story in terms of completion and success, and one that's been improving steadily. If you remember going back to the slider and looking at what's happening to the graduation rates. It frustrates me to hear people, either in people that I think should be knowledgeable, talking about, well, less than half the students graduate. Well, I don't know where that's true, but it's not true here. That's not true with our students. So I do think it's an advance in the knowledge curve, and that we ought to be taking this out and sharing it, boasting about it.
Regent Whitburn.
Would you hit Oshkosh?
Did I hit Oshkosh? All right. Now you're going to make life difficult here. So this comes up in a little different format, doesn't it? Did I hit Oshkosh and we went to the
No, this is correct. This information is reported through the voluntary system of accountability for each of our four-year institutions. They have a website called College Portraits, and rather than try to replicate that information in our dashboard, David has taken you to their site, and this is the information for UW-Oshkosh.
So you'd have to read this bar here. Go ahead. I was going to ask it to hit 2 campuses, and then, ultimately, part of our job is to look at the outliers, and then to ask the question of why.
Right.
Why this here? Why there? Something else there. And to some extent, that goes to a piece that you made reference to in your narrative, which is the business of takeaways. But I think among the things most important for us is the analysis. What are the key takeaways year to year, and then on a 3 or 5 year? So are we making progress, and where is progress contrasted? Thank you.
Additional questions? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. President Cross?
I think Regent Whitburn, in some ways, is discussing how do we best use this tool, and I think that's exactly what we're trying to figure out too, how best to use it from a management perspective. So we would appreciate any thoughts you have in regard to that, because we want to own it. We want you to own it with us. But I have already thanked Sue and David and the team of folks from OPAR, and Heather, who's listening by phone or online, for this work, and David Ward for your work. Appreciate that very much. I personally think this is a huge step forward. And once we start integrating the 4 categories with the 12 or 13 additional items, it's going to be so much easier for us to look at this and pull out the anomalies or those things that do not appear to be normal or contracting, or maybe there's a reason they're contracting, but it allows us to trigger that. So I really appreciate this, and I hope the transparency and the usefulness of this has an impact.
Regents move into closed session to 1, consider personal histories related to meeting of facilities at UW Stevens Point.